the limit of the brakes is so high that people that will not drive the car in a sporty way or in canyons or on a truck, they may not ever get to the limit of carbon ceramic brakes. So for them, the benefits of it is the look, maybe if they like it, but also the no dust. That's really important to a lot of people.
Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Find all your fuel system needs at deechworks.com. If you see me at the racetrack and your fuel pump isn't working, come find me. I have complimentary fuel pumps from Deechworks for you and your chassis. I'm carrying probably a dozen different kinds, so come find me. On this episode of the Blind Apex Podcast, we're talking about rich people stuff, pro racer stuff. Well, for most of us, we think that way. But like most technology, it's getting cheaper, more accessible, at least to the average club racer. You're going to see it a lot more in the paddock. Assuming your series will allow it, which I doubt it, but we're going to talk about carbon brakes. Since I can't own them, and I'm definitely too race car poor to buy them, joining me, friend of a friend, entrepreneur, innovator, BMW driver, and instructor, Rami. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
So you are... Mario told me reach out to Rami and talk to him. And I said, okay. And then before he could get me your information, he just sent you a message. And I started searching your website. It's ReBrakeUSA.com. I want to know about how you got into that, but maybe before we get into that, let's get your track background, because you don't race, which is okay. You could have hundreds more track days under your belt than most racers. You know, we race 8 times a year and you could be at the track every weekend instead. So, but let's talk about your background and then sort of how you got into carbon brakes and ReBrake. And then let's get an education, because this, in my opinion, it's going to be the future. I'm sure we'll argue about that later, but.
So, a while back, I got into motorcycles, and after doing motorcycles on track days, I got an itch for a sports car. So I found a 2013 M3, BMW M3, which was the last year of the V8, and I did not want to get a newer one that came with a turbo. So I went to test drive it. I got excited about it, and bought a used one with 6,000 miles. So that gave me fairly new car, but with budgets to improve it. Mm-hmm. It sat in the garage for about a year because I said, I just want to have a nice sports car. Then one day I went to a nearby truck, which was fairly new. It's called New York Safety Truck. And from the get-go, I loved it so much. I bought a subscription for the whole summer, and I just went there every Saturday or as much as I can and drove it harder and harder and ate up tires because I didn't have any camber. So, it started going down the rabbit hole of improving the car. So more camber and more suspension. And then as I got faster and I drove the car harder, I wanted to be more and more like a race car. And at some point, I saw that a natural progression is to get brakes. So I started looking on the website for brakes. Big brakes, small brakes, this kind of brakes, that kind of brakes. And then I saw that there was something that it's called carbon ceramic brakes. And I said, I want to make that car special. And that was one way to make the car special. And that was my introduction to carbon ceramic brakes. I didn't know anything about it before that, but I got it. I put it on the car and I loved the way it felt. I didn't have any squeaks, didn't have any issues with it. It was just like great. And the main thing about it, I've noticed that it was very, very consistent on a track. Like I can go lap after lap and session after session, and day after day, it just looked the same. And that allowed me to create some kind of a benchmark or some kind of like a baseline from which I can improve. And I really like that process. So that's how I got into carbon ceramic brakes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the history, because 10 years ago, 20 years ago, carbon ceramic brakes were essentially aerospace and F1 and Indy cars only, right?
Right.
So,
That would be a carbon type brakes.
right. So, but let's talk about the evolution of the brakes and the economics surrounding the brakes. So, they're offered on many things now, right? Like, I think
Yes.
that
So
M4 has some things like that. It's not exclusively a supercar product. It's not exclusively for the aerospace industry. So,
no,
uh,
it's almost any sport car, or many of them. I shouldn't say all of them. Many of them will have the option for carbon ceramic brakes, and uh, some cars just come with it. You have to maybe ask the manufacturer to specifically put Stili brakes on the car. But in general, if you buy certain cars, they'll come with carbon ceramic brakes. So for example, a McLaren will come with carbon ceramic brakes. A Ferrari will come with carbon ceramic brakes. If you buy a Corvette, there'll be an option to uh, fit it with carbon ceramic brakes. Porsche depends on the type. So GT3 RS will come with carbon ceramic brakes, although you can ask them to, I think it's a no-cost option to put Stili on it. But if you don't, I think the option is just to get it with it. I'm not that familiar with the details of how you get it, but lots of people that have the GT3 RS, the GT3, the GT4, GT4 RS, this type of cars will choose the option of carbon ceramic brakes. From talking to many, many drivers and owners, the main thing they like about it is that there is no brake dust. That's the number one reason that most people like carbon ceramic brakes, because the limit of the brakes is so high that people that will not drive the car in a sporty way or in canyons or on a track, they may not ever get to the limit of carbon ceramic brakes. So for them, the benefits of it is the look, maybe if they like it, but also the no dust. That's really important to a lot of people.
but historically, these brakes have been relegated to expensive cars. We've now talked about how they're relegated to more dedicated sports cars. The regular normal sedans aren't going to have them. Economy cars like my Honda Civic that's not an option for a Honda Civic, right? But
Well, yes, they're very expensive. So, the car manufacturers will have to kind of like proportionally put them on a car that the brakes is not cost more than a car. So,
right. But the economics of it all and how it's evolved is, I believe there's multiple different types. And so on a modern sports car, we can get into we talked earlier, obviously, you said 3 different types, but in the economics to me were very, it still seemed like a far reach. Like the Porsche, I guess different manufacturers are offering different price packages, but I think the biggest problem was when the discs wore out. And I guess we can talk about what a disc
Yes.
looks like when it's worn out. But the replacement disc was usually more expensive than the option to
Yes.
actually buy the whole kit.
Correct. That's the main problem of how the carbon ceramic brakes are priced, is that the option costs money, but it's in proportion to the car. It's not that much. A lot of people will order it. But then when they realize how expensive it is to replace it, if something happens, or if something mechanically happened, if somebody dropped something on their disc, or the wheel fell on it and it broke, when they see how much it costs to replace it, everybody gets scared, and they kind of like take them off, put them on a shelf until they resell the car and they buy Steelers. So this is where the fear of how much it's going to cost to replace them plays into the psychology of owning carbon ceramic brakes.
Yeah. So we were talking yesterday, and it was almost like the replacement discs cost more than the option in most cases. And so that becomes a hindrance in the grand scheme of things. Literally, we're recording in the evening, like most times when I record with guests, and I don't know, 6:30 this evening, I saw a post from a team that also sells parts and does coaching and things, and that team on somebody's C8 Corvette replaced the carbon ceramic discs with a steel setup and posted about it,
Yes.
So it's a common occurrence, especially when you're on track all the time. I don't know how we want to approach it. Let's talk about the different material, because I know they are treated differently and they last and perform differently. So let's talk about the different carbon brake types.
So let's kind of like look at carbon ceramic brakes in a little bit in the pieces and parts of it. So carbon ceramic brakes will have the hat, which is the metal piece that goes on the car. Mm-hmm. Then it will have a floating hardware. And the floating hardware is a type of a hardware that connects the carbon ceramic ring to the hat. And this floating hardware is required because the temperature affect differently the hat, which is either aluminum or stainless steel, depends on the car, from the carbon ceramic brakes. And it's very important that the ring and the hat can move in relationship to each other as they get hot and cold. And then you have the ring. So the ring is made by so the ring itself will have 3 different kinds on the market right now. One kind is made by Brembo, and that is the type called CCM, and that is made from short fiber. And it's beautiful because you can see the carbon and there's no dust. But this type has a weakness that relates to temperature. Because that type does not have a friction layer and it's all carbon ceramic, when it gets hot, the carbon get combined with oxygen and it oxidized, and the disc gets to start getting rough and loses its ability to brake smoothly.
Okay.
So this type create a situation that if you take it to the truck, then it's quite easy to damage the braking surface of the disc. If you take it to Watkins Glen and you do 3 days there, chances are that at the end of 3 days, you will start seeing some kind of deterioration on the surface. So which car uses that type. So Corvette will use it, Viper will use it, McLaren will use it, Ferrari will use it, old Aston Martin will use it. Now, the reason I bring it about because the cost of the disc is not the same from each manufacturer, even though it's the same carbon ceramic ring from Brembo.
Okay.
So the cost is really up to each car manufacturer to charge whatever they want. But it's not an indication that the disc is better than another disc. So, for example, a Corvette disc it costs less because GM seems to be subsidizing the cost of the disc. But it's not any different than what's on Ferrari, which they will charge the owner 3 times as much.
Yeah, you get the Ferrari tax. It's well known.
Ferrari, McLaren, the all cost can go up to like $5,000 a disc.
Okay.
$5,000 to $6,000 a disc. But they're not any better from a GM disc, which is around $1,800 to $2,000.
In size relativity, they're basically the same, right? There's no dramatic size difference.
The size, the earlier version of carbon ceramic brakes used to be about 380 millimeter on the front and 360 on the rear.
Mm-hmm.
And then as we moved in time and the manufacturer moved from like 18, 19-inch wheels to 20-inch wheels or 21-inch wheels, the disc grew to 410 on the front or 420 on the front. And about 380, I don't think there's a 400 in the rear, but 380 to 400 in the rear. So the size grew as we moved in time from when it was introduced.
Yeah, I mean,
and the quality of the carbon ceramic itself has gotten better over the years. So even though it's the same type CCM from 10 years ago is not the same as the CCM that comes out now.
Yeah, so for people's edification, if you Google it, the Brembo carbon ceramic kit, just if you Google it, DuckDuckGo, whatever your search engine of choice is, if you look at it, I pulled it up. One that would fit under my 17-inch wheel is, I think the highest price was like $8,000 for the whole kit, which came with pads, the whole 2-piece carbon ceramic rotor, and the calipers.
That's from Brembo. It's a Chinese company.
Yeah. But everybody goes down that rabbit hole every now and then. And in the grand scheme of things, everything's a slippery slope. You pay $2,000 for a brake kit, and then you can go, well, I can justify a $4,000 brake kit. You get to $4,000, maybe you can justify $8,000. I don't know how it works for everybody. But in the grand scheme of things, it seemed not unreasonable. 20 years ago, that was probably an $18,000 kit, So
right. I mean, like everything. I mean, although the price of carbon ceramic brakes from the manufacturers have not really gone down. So when we talk about kits aftermarket, there are many sources for carbon ceramic brakes. They're not all made the same. So it's difficult to do this kind of a comparison. So it's for the sake of discussion about carbon ceramic brakes, it's easier to go what the manufacturers do, not what the aftermarket kits are doing, because the aftermarket kits, then you have to go into like the quality of it, and you don't really know how the carbon ceramic ring is made and who makes it. So it's just difficult conversation because you don't quite know what you get into.
Right.
But regardless, it's out there and it's choices, and if somebody wants to try to retrofit, like for my car, Brembo made a kit, so I didn't really had to put it together. I just bought a Brembo kit for my car.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what size wheels you run, but I could probably take your kit and just build a new offset for the caliper that bolts to my hub,
Yeah.
and then we're fine. I mean, the the world is our oyster with, what is it, like draw, cut, send or something like that, like the internet and the free for all with free CAD software. I mean, I think we could probably all design stuff if we really got into it. But so we've been talking about some of the high end stuff and the Brembo things. So the McLarens, the Ferraris, things like that. And would you say it's the CCM?
It's called CCM.
CCM.
Then there is a second, yeah. Then there's a second type. So Brembo is in Italy, and that's when they developed the CCM type. Parallel to that, SGL in Germany developed their carbon ceramic brakes. This is a little bit different type of brakes. They develop a carbon ceramic that the core disc is a little bit stronger, but it has a friction layer.
Mm-hmm.
And that friction layer is its own entity on top of the disc. That friction layer, like the CCM, is made with a lot of carbon. And but that's what Porsche used until 2012 in the older models. Audi still uses this type, and Lamborghini, which is outfit of Audi, is still using it. And I don't know who else use it, but that's kind of like the majority of the disc that you will see.
I think
from that type.
BMW uses it in the M4 platforms.
BMW will use the third kind.
Oh, well, they use the third kind. Okay.
So the third kind, it's we call it CCBH, or carbon ceramic brakes hard. It has a good core disc, but the friction layer is made out of silicon carbide, and that is a significant material difference than the CCBS, or the second kind, or the first one, which is CCM. And the main reason for it to be significantly different is because of oxidation or gasification of carbon. So when we use the car in a sporty environment, track, canyons, or even if you just have a powerful car and you drive it aggressively and the traction control is using the brakes really extensively, then we can get to braking temperatures of 1,000 Celsius. And that is a problem because carbon oxidizes at 500 degrees. So you're starting to create a carbon breakage from the heat, not so much from the friction, from the mechanical friction.
Okay.
So these two types, the CCM and the CCBS, have that characteristic that the friction layer or the surface starting to break down if you use the brakes. The third kind that BMW use and Porsche use and Mercedes use and few other cars, the oxidation temperature is 1,400 degrees. The number itself does not matter. What matters is that the oxidation is above the braking temperatures.
Right.
And therefore, that type of a disc does not deteriorate because of heat on track days. Over time, it will wear out the friction layer from the mechanical friction with the pads. But that's going to be much, much longer life to that kind of a disc.
Right. Okay. So you talked about gasification, and that takes me back to some of the early reading I did in some of the older books that I've read that talk about drilling the rotors because of the asbestos in the brake pads, or the brake compounds had a lot of asbestos and it would gas off at certain temperatures. We have people now who drive around with drilled rotors that don't need it because we don't use gasified pad compounds anymore. But every carbon ceramic rotor that I've seen seems to be cross-drilled already. So is that from
Yes.
its own gasification process?
That is a different gasification. This is when the friction generates I guess, some kind of radiation or something like that. That the pads and the you don't want the pads to float on the disc. But
Right.
that's really a different type of conversation. That's not oxidations. This is the pads to disc interaction.
Okay.
And you are correct. You are correct that all the carbon ceramic brakes are drilled and not slotted or J hooks.
Right. Yeah. I noticed that also because, well, I've had, I won't say issues with J hooks or slots, but in general, they add a little bit too much wear to my pad, in my opinion. But I'm cheap and I drive an economy car fast, or try to drive it fast anyway. So I'm always worried about the economics of things. Let's try to look at, because we've talked about some of the street cars with kits and we've talked about the types. Let's talk about the pros and cons of carbon, iron, whether it's on the track, driving them, or usage rates and things like that.
So one of the important benefits of carbon ceramic brakes is the weight. So if you look at a 420 millimeter disc, which is massive, and you pick it up, you can hold it with your finger. It's very, very light compared to a size like that will be made out of iron or gray iron. That weight is a spinning weight. So it is significant when you accelerate and decelerate advantage when it's so light.
Does that also help with the temperature differentiation? Because we run iron rotors pretty hard and pretty hot, but when they're lighter,
we right now we're just talking about weight.
Okay.
If you have a rotating mass like a disc or a drive shaft or anything rotating, to accelerate that piece of equipment, it's more important for it to be light. And carbon ceramic disc is significantly lighter than equivalent iron disc. So the rotating mass, you need more energy to go faster, and you need more energy to stop it. And weight is also translate to miles per gallon. So manufacturers always looking to see how they can make their cars more, higher miles per gallon. So some of them will use carbon ceramic brakes to reduce the weight of the vehicle.
Yeah, it's similar to the principles of a flywheel, right? The lighter your flywheel, the faster the car accelerates, but also the faster the engine will decelerate. So it will spin up faster, spin down faster.
Like a flywheel.
Yeah. So,
but you have four of them, not one.
Correct. And yeah, it's important, physics wise. It's important. I'm sure Mark, my physics MIT PhD nerd, is going to correct me later, but the flywheel is centered to the crankshaft. Literally is centered on the crankshaft. So the weight there is important, but it's less important than the stuff that's farther away. The farther away you get from the center of your derived power, where your crankshaft is, the more important weight is. So the further out along the drive line you go, the more important it is to remove that spinning weight.
Again, we'll let the
that
PhD in
I'm
physics to
sure he'll
comment on
yeah, he'll tell me I need to edit this out later, but it's fine. So let's talk about the performance on track, because I know yesterday we had a conversation on this, and I think it's pretty important. It's something I don't think, especially the people who have them on the car and are like, oh, forget this, it's too expensive, I'm going to iron. I don't think they quite realize how important it can be.
So the benefits of carbon ceramic brakes on a track, on the braking technique, we can discuss the pros and cons, but I don't know if the difference is going to be important to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
But from my personal experience and from what I'm learning about brakes, and because I'm interested in the topic, so the important things about carbon ceramic brakes is that when you brake into a turn, the critical part of the braking is not just the initial part to slow down the car. It is all throughout the turn, and when you do a trail braking, that you want that trail braking to be very precise and very consistent. And we're really using the braking no longer to really slow down the car. We using the brakes to control the weight distribution of the front as we're coming into the turn. Because carbon ceramic brakes doesn't have a fade issue, you can then be very precise because it's going to be the same, not accounting for the fade that steels usually have. Now, people will have this legitimate argument where they say, well, I have these brakes and they don't fade, and I have these brakes and they don't fade. But the question becomes, we have to then focus on the conversation of like, when you say they don't fade, where is it that they don't fade? So, for example, good quality brakes, when you brake in the straight line coming into the corner, the good ones will not fade at the initial hard braking to slow down the car. And the good steel brakes will not fade, and the good carbon ceramic brakes will not fade. But it is in the light braking that you carry into the corner, trying to maximize entry speed, that the braking becomes really minute and very, very difficult to modulate, and very important to the entry speed coming into the corner. So that's one of the benefits of carbon ceramic brakes. Now, is it important? How important should you get carbon ceramic brakes because of it, even though it's a lot more expensive? That becomes a conversation that every driver and owner will have to have with themselves, because now you're talking about budget. So that's very personal.
It is personal, but when you already have them, it's good to know what you're about to give up, right? It could be in their first track car. Some people are blessed with that kind of budget where they just buy a C8 Corvette and it's the only thing they've driven, or a 911 Porsche or something of that nature that's come with it. And then when they go to an iron, they go, oh, my brakes aren't the same, right? I cannot feel my brake release point as well with this iron after several laps that I could with the carbon, And
Right.
when you're pushing for every little bit, you have to realize that there is a difference. It's not just a material difference. It's not just a dollar difference. And are you willing to sacrifice that?
Well, and to feel the difference, then you need to your approach to braking maybe should be different, because with good quality steelies, when you hit the brakes hard, there's a lot of bite to it.
Mm-hmm.
So you feel that the brakes are fantastic because you feel this really huge deceleration, and then you brake later and deeper and harder, and it feels like you are like a race car driver. But the trick about braking is to actually brake as light as possible, not as hard as possible. So if you want to brake into a corner, bringing the car as stable as possible into the apex, into minimum speed, and you want your deceleration to be as proportions to where you are in the turn to the best that you can, that means that there is no really two steps to it. You don't brake hard, slow down the car, and then you try to take the corner. You're actually trying to decelerate in the rate in which you're turning the steering wheel, because as you're turning more the steering wheel, you need the car to slow down more, but then you need to finesse the brakes in a lot more minute way.
Right. Yesterday, you described it as you're transferring the braking from
Yes.
the pedal to the steering wheel. So you're letting tire scrub take over for brake friction.
Yes.
And it's the balance of your hands and your feet. Yeah. No. I wanted to make sure we hit that because it was, to me.
So I want to make it a little bit more specific. So let's think about the front springs. Okay. So as I come to the corner and I brake, the springs will compress. Now, I want these springs, the compressed springs, to be as stable as possible coming to minimum speed into the apex. Therefore, as I'm coming into the corner and as I'm releasing the brakes in trail braking, slowly releasing it, carrying as much speed as I can, at the same time, I'm adding steering. If I'm adding steering, another way to think about it, I'm adding scrubbing and I'm adding brakes. So if I'm adding brakes, my goal is for the compressed springs to get released very slowly and very gradually, but never jump, to release their weight of the car from the front tires just when I need it the most. And this is where we just, as you just said, is that I want to do it proportionally with my feet, like releasing the brakes and turning the steering wheel so the car has enough weight on the front, but in a gentle way, with never coming, from the contact patch point of view. I don't want it to go up and down on the pavement. I just want it to be on the pavement.
No.
And that transformation of braking with the steering and off the brakes, the carbon ceramic brakes allows you to do it because they're very stable material. In other words, they're the same every time you do it. So then you can just practice and you can try it better and better and better. It doesn't change from lap to lap.
Okay. So the consistency is very key. It is a very key pro to the carbon ceramic brake. I can tell you that my irons, they get hot. They stay a certain temperature. They break different on lap 1 than they do on lap 4. Things get spongy sometimes. Sometimes the pedal travel changes, so it's hard to stay consistent in the car. But the big pro for the irons is I can go, oh, looks like it's warped, looks like it's cracked. I'm going to throw it in the trash and pay maximum $200 for a new ring.
Yes.
Or whatever, a whole steel setup. If we're drivers with carbon ceramic brakes, and I know there's 3 different kinds, what do the brakes look like when they're degrading?
Right. So this is why it's important to understand that there are 3 kinds, and it's important to know what kind you have, because the way that the carbon ceramic disc wears out is different, depends on the kind. So, and the key thing about it is to understand when the friction layer is degraded, because if just the friction layer is degraded, then there's alternative to replace that friction layer with something sometimes better or the same. But you don't have to replace the whole disc. You can just replace the friction layer, or the disc can be fixed or refurbished. So that's why it's important to understand the condition, because when carbon ceramic disc or brakes get worn out, there's nothing, it's not like iron that gets warped or get cracked. There's nothing wrong with the actual carbon ceramic core disc. So it can be fixed or can be refurbished if it's if the friction layer is getting worn out.
What do they look like when they need to be replaced, or in this case, serviced?
Yeah. So let's talk about CCM. So Ferrari, McLaren, GM, Viper, GM is Camaro came with it, and the Corvettes. Viper came with it, and then Alfa Romeo has it. So that kind of a disc from Brembo CCM, it's a CCM type. When it gets to be oxidized or the friction layer is starting to get worn out, it gets rough. When you touch it with your hands, it started to get not smooth like mirror. Carbon ceramic brakes needs to be smooth like mirror. As they get rough, they're starting to deteriorate. And that type, because the core disc is more susceptible to oxidation because it doesn't have a friction layer, just the surface gets rough, then that type is more important to treat it and work on it early in the cycle of deterioration, because it's more critical for the outcome. The second kind is the one that Audi and Lamborghini use. This is a friction layer with carbon. When you look at the disc, you will see when it's new, it's going to be smooth like mirror. It's going to be very smooth. You touch it, it's like literally like glass. But if you look carefully into it, you will see that there was kind of like a dashes and vertical slits in the look of how it looks. And as long as it's smooth, the disc is fine. But as it gets deteriorated, you start to see that the dashes and the slits starting to get texture that you can pick on it with your fingernail. And the deeper it gets, the more it's a signal that the friction layer is get deteriorated. Up to a point that it's pretty obvious that the disc is, you've used the disc.
Okay. So let's talk about some of the best practices for those types of stuff. And let's talk about...
Let's cover the third type for a second.
Okay, yeah, let's do that.
So the third type that has silicon carbide, that material, that friction layer, it's really hard. It doesn't oxidize, but it has, the look of it has stress fractures. And the stress fractures are necessary because when the friction layer gets hot, the silicon carbide, which is bound or glued or put together with the carbon ceramic core disc, it needs to be able to go someplace when it gets hot. And that's why the stress fractures are very critical for the way the material works. It's so hard that if it's going to get hot and it'll have no place to go, it's going to buckle away from the carbon ceramic core disc.
Okay.
But the material is so hard, but it's the friction is very thin. It's 0.3 millimeter, which means that the stress fractures are only 0.3 millimeter deep. You can see them when they're new. They're very pronounced. But as you use it and the pads grind against it, after a long time, it lasts a long time, those stress fractures will start getting thin and that shallow, and they'll be fading away. And that's how you know that the friction layer is mechanically scraped off the disc over time. It can take 3, 4, 5 years, depends on how you brake. And that's a good time to start thinking about what else to do with it. All right, so that's how we cover the 3 types.
Okay. So let's talk about how ReBrake is changing the carbon ceramic game and how that's what you guys do impacts those 3 types.
So what ReBrake, the core thing that ReBrake discovers is that when the carbon ceramic disc is no longer meet manufacturer specifications, there's actually nothing wrong with the disc. Only the friction layer or the very thin part of the disc that touches the pad is worn out. And traditionally, basically, the manufacturer, the dealer, you came with your car and they said it doesn't pass certification or it doesn't pass the specification, throwing it and you have to buy a new one, or you convert it to stainless because you don't want to buy a new one. So what ReBrake found is that there's nothing wrong with the disc, and then we have a way to repair the friction layer that that goes on a disc. Now, the significance of it is that our friction layer is silicon carbide. So we can make the disc equivalent to new on the type that has silicon carbide, but more significantly, on the other 2 kinds, we can make them resilient, just like the silicon carbide type for that portion BMW used. And that's in a nutshell what we do. If the disc has like spots in it, they got like breakage or something like that, we can fix it. And we can renew it basically in our manufacturing facility in Germany.
So the big thing for me is in our conversations, us iron guys, we don't have a preventative maintenance schedule per se. We look under there and we go, that crack's close to the edge. I'm changing it.
Right.
But for you guys, for you carbon guys, especially if you're going to basically get ReBrake to get retreated,
right,
and have your rotors serviced instead of replaced, what's that maintenance sort of look like?
So this is really the crux of the issue with carbon ceramic brakes. We need to get the brakes that their core disc is still in good shape. So there's some kind of proactiveness needs to be on the side of the owner or the driver or the shop that take care of the car. You need to recognize that the disc is useful life has came to an end. The friction layer has been used. Before the core disc itself get damaged from continual usage, then it's a good time to talk to us. And then what happens is that we have a process that we get the disc. We have a commercial DHL account that I use to send the discs to Germany, to the shop. And then the disc goes through our manufacturing process, and then we bind or fix the disc or bind a new friction layer to it. Mm-hmm. And we send it back to you. And then the disc, it's equivalent to a new disc. From functionally, it does look a little bit different because our friction layer is a little bit different. And if there was some kind of like a something to fix, which is like a carbon ceramic brakes, if something hits them, they may get chipped at the edges or in the middle of the surface. So we fill it with our materials, and then we put a coating on it, which is the friction layer. That will have some different look to it, but functionally it will be equivalent to new.
Yeah, and I don't want to ask about prices over the air per se, but I'm going to assume it's at a significant discount to replacing what standard rotors from at least the major manufacturers are charging for, right?
So it is significantly cheaper, and the way it works is that If you go to a dealership like a Ferrari dealership, McLaren, and you buy a disc from them, our price is about a third of that cost. If you have a friend in the dealership, if you get some special discounts, our price will be half the price of that discounted price.
Okay. I mean, and it's so key. I mean, the adage, an ounce of prevention is a pound of cure is super important, because everybody's looking at their budgets more and more these days. And if you want to keep riding on carbons, you just need to be proactive. It sounds like there is an option for you right now.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And I mean,
Well, the way you put it, the way you put it is exactly the key. So every person like to drive what they like to drive. They like to select whatever equipment and modification they want to do for the car. But what ReBrake does is very simple. If you concluded and decided that you want to have carbon ceramic brakes, we leave it up to you. If you want to change it to steel, that's up to you. There's information out there of what's good, what's bad, all the stuff. It's up to the owner and the driver. But if you want to drive with carbon ceramic brakes, we give you an option that is economically give you a possibility to do it in an economic way, I guess the best way to say. And our price per car will be the equivalent of, if you spread it over the number of years that it lasts, it'll be basically the equivalent of a set of tires.
Yeah, you almost can't argue with that, right? Like to keep the let's talk about the bling factor of carbon, but then you talk about the performance factor of it, and then your long-term sacrifice is you have to pay attention, and it's the cost is a set of tires instead of several sets of tires.
If you fix your carbon ceramic brakes and you calculate for how many years it's going to last, then it's going to be basically cheaper than a set of Hoosiers.
So I actually saw a post from you today, I believe, and you were talking, was it 24 track days on a set?
Yeah, so my car is actually I have an experimental disc. My type of disc is not the 3 common disc. It's a kit from Brembo.
Mm-hmm.
So we did one of my car. So my car on my carbon ceramic, I have 2 sets, but the set I have right now, I have about 40 to 50. Well, before 2024, I had about 40 to 50 track days on it. So one of the front, I sent it to Germany and we coated it with our friction layer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other side, the passenger side, I left it alone. So in 2024 in April, I started driving on our friction layer, and I have now 24 track days on the car. Lots of them in Watkins Glen, which is hard on brakes. I just came back from 2 days at NJMP, which has only 1 or 2 things. I do a lot of lime rocks, which is not that hard on brakes, but there's one hard braking at T1. But I do a lot of Watkins Glen, which is really a lot hard on the brakes. And basically my disc that started the year with 40 track days, and now I have, in addition to it, 24 track days. It's literally has not changed from April to now. It's still smooth as mirror. It's still unbelievably performance. And it uses like half the amount of brake pads that the other side uses, because the other side is untreated, so it's rough.
Yeah.
Just the economics of brake pads is paying for the treatment.
Yeah. So actually, let's talk about brake pads, because in our prior conversation, we talked about this, and I believe you said you had the best or the most experience or the only experience with Pagid, but it's not your standard brake pads, right? For these types of brakes?
Yeah, basically so the manufacturers will give you brake pads for carbon ceramic brakes. Carbon ceramic brakes pads are not the same as Steely's. You can't, in Steely's, you have many options and you select this one and that one and the other kind and, endurance. For carbon ceramic brakes, you typically have only one kind or maybe two.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like, you don't really tailor the braking, for the carbon ceramic brakes. I mean, you can always do that, but typically you get one option from the car manufacturer. And if you go with Paget, then you have three kinds: RSC1, RSC2, and RSC3. And each one of them, the RSC1 will be for road usage and also for the track. RSC3 will be mostly for the track, but it's fine on the road too.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that people understood that the brake pad is different. You can't go carbon ceramic and then slap your Raybestos ST43s or your Hawk DTC 60s or 70s on there.
Exactly.
You're going to be in a whole new world when you go that direction. So
the other thing we should probably clarify, sometimes when people talk about carbon ceramic or ceramics, they think that the pads are ceramic because there's language that includes ceramics on brake pads, but that's really not the ceramic or carbon ceramics of the disc. It's just the pads have ceramics. I'm not really sure what's in it, but I want to make sure that we're not talking about the pads being ceramics. We're talking about the rotor being carbon ceramics.
Correct. Yeah. Specifically carbon ceramic rotors. That's what we've been talking about. But, I mean, I think we've covered everything on the list. Do you have anything else that I'm trying to remember yesterday's conversation.
So basically, I have a big group that is dedicated for carbon ceramic brakes on Facebook. Feel free to join. And then I put a lot of pictures there. I put a lot of education about carbon ceramic brakes. I show examples of carbon ceramic brakes, so it's really easy to understand the technology. If you need to reach me, you can reach ReBrakeUSA.com. I'm on the contacts page there. No manufacturing is happening in North America. All the manufacturing is happening at ReBrake in Germany. So that's our shop, where our shop is. And the rest is details of how to do it. And if you choose to drive with carbon ceramic brakes, then we are one options that you have to keep driving on carbon ceramic brakes in an economical way.
Holden, he's the only person I know that has them on now 2 street cars probably, but you need to go send your stuff out, man. I really appreciate you coming on. This is true education for me. I know my current setup, I probably will not ever be on carbon ceramic. Okay. But it still teaches you. It still teaches you theory. It teaches you about the technology, and you don't know what the next 10 years is going to be, because 10 years ago, I would have told you it's not going to be this common of a product in the street cars, So
yeah,
we don't know what to
see
do.
them more and more.
And you said, like you said earlier, they're using them more and more because they need to make that mile per gallon, and the EPA keeps asking for more and more miles per gallon out of these cars. And we may see it, especially if there's another technology jump, a different generation of carbon ceramic, or a manufacturing jump in how the technology is developed. We could see it. And then Lord knows the rules committees are going to have to figure it out, because that's going to be tough. The more they see it, the more they have to acknowledge its existence. So, but
And I think that the decision, the conversation about carbon ceramic brakes can become heated because it's expensive and people starting to get into the conversation. Is it necessary or it's not necessary? So I just want to clear that I don't get into that conversations. I'm in the conversation like if you concluded that you want to have carbon ceramic brakes, then by all means, I'm your guy to talk to about that. But I'm not getting into convincing anybody not to convert to stainless. If that's what people want, by all means, they should do that.
I know. I tried to bait you into that conversation yesterday, and you wouldn't take it. So. But
it's easy to get into like I'm not saying that you should convert everything you have to carbon ceramic brakes. I understand that I coach a lot of people and I see people from fast car to slow cars and they're all enjoying their cars on the track. And to me, that's what a sport is about, is that everybody enjoy whatever they enjoy. And that's the beauty of it. It's not everybody has to have the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you again for coming on. As
Thank
always,
you for having me.
Yeah, man. And anytime you want to come back on, maybe something changes, there's a major update in technology that I'm not following, let's talk about it because I think it's important to educate people.
100%. If I have a breakthrough in technology, I'll reach out to you.
Yeah, let's do it.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.